"We need an airport, now. We're running out of fuel." Those words echo through the radio on a stormy evening over northern India. Vistara Flight 944, an Airbus A320 carrying 161 people, is dangerously low on fuel. The pilots can't see the runway. The storm below is getting worse, and the next few minutes will decide whether this plane makes it or vanishes into the rain. In the cabin, passengers stare out of fogged windows, unaware that they are minutes away from the disaster. But how did a simple 2-hour flight turn into a desperate fight for survival? It's July 15th, 2019. Monsoon season. Mumbai is drenched in heavy rain that has lasted since dawn. Thunder rumbles in the distance, lightning flickers across the city skyline, and another storm is brewing over New Delhi, the destination of Flight 944. Inside Chhatrapati Shivaji International Airport, 155 passengers line up to board. Business travelers, families, students, all just trying to get to the capital. At Gate 23, ground crew prepare the aircraft. A 1-year-old Airbus A320, fresh from the factory, clean, efficient, and ready to fly. At the controls is a 30-year-old captain with over 8,000 flight hours, confident, calm, and well-trained. Beside him, a 28-year-old first officer, still building hours, eager to learn. Together they've flown this route dozens of times. Mumbai to Delhi is one of the busiest air corridors in the world. It's predictable, short, and straightforward. At least on most days. But that morning, both Mumbai and Delhi are under the grip of massive monsoon storms. Flights are delayed, runways are wet, and visibility keeps dropping. Still, the weather forecast says that Delhi will clear up by the time they arrive. It sounds reassuring enough. So boarding continues as planned, and soon, the cabin doors close with a dull metallic thud. The engines start, their deep hum vibrating through the fuselage. Flight 944 is ready for takeoff. Before any flight, one decision defines everything: how much fuel to carry. For airlines, fuel isn't just about range, it's about money. Every extra kilo of fuel adds weight. More weight means more burn. More burn means less profit. Every flight is a careful balance between safety and cost. For Flight 944, the math looks something like this: 500 kilos for taxiing, 4,000 for the actual trip to Delhi, 200 more as a small contingency, and about 1,150 kilos of legally required reserve. Then, according to Vistara's internal rule, they add roughly another 1,000 kilos as an extra safety buffer. On paper, everything looks fine, until they reach the part called alternate fuel. In aviation, every flight must have backup airports in case the destination is unavailable. On clear days, one alternate is enough. But on stormy days like this, 2 are mandatory. The dispatcher lists Ahmedabad and Lucknow as alternates. Ahmedabad is far away, meaning more safety, but also more fuel. Lucknow is closer, cheaper, and conveniently located. The crew looks again at the forecast. The storm over Delhi is expected to clear by 4:30 in the afternoon, and Lucknow's weather looks fine. Confident in the forecast, they make a decision that will define this day. They take less fuel. They choose Lucknow as their primary alternate, Jaipur as a secondary one, and decide to skip carrying the extra weight for Ahmedabad. On paper, Ahmedabad remains listed as the official alternate, but in reality, they'll never reach it with the fuel they're carrying. It's a small adjustment, a bit of creative paperwork that saves weight, saves fuel, and technically checks the boxes. Legal? Yes. Smart? Maybe not. At 3:18 p.m., Flight 944 takes off from Mumbai. The engines roar as the aircraft surges down the damp runway, lifting into the heavy gray skies. Raindrops streak across the windows as the city disappears beneath a thick layer of clouds. Inside, the cabin lights dim. Passengers settle into their seats. Some plug in headphones, others scroll through phones, a few close their eyes for a nap. To them, it's just another flight. But above the clouds, nature is preparing something much worse. 2 hours later, as they approach Delhi, the captain requests updated weather. What he hears is not good. Thunderstorms have intensified. Visibility has collapsed to just 500 meters. Winds are gusting beyond 30 knots. Rain is hammering the airport. The once reassuring forecast has failed them. The captain contacts air traffic control. The reply comes through the static. Vistara 944, join the holding pattern. They start circling above Delhi. 1 turn, 2 turns, 3. Each loop burns precious fuel, about 55 kilos per minute. The captain looks down at the gauges. Just over 5,000 kilos remain. Enough for 30 minutes, maybe less. The first officer glances over, but says nothing. He knows they're running short. He knows the rules say they should divert. But years of aviation hierarchy have taught him something else. Junior pilots don't challenge captains mid-flight, so he stays quiet. The minutes pass. The fuel gauge ticks down. 4,900, 4,600, 4,300. The storm refuses to move. Their legal alternate, Ahmedabad, is now far out of range. Finally, after another anxious turn, the captain makes the call. Let's divert to Lucknow. They turn east toward Lucknow, but the storm is massive and spreading faster than expected. Lightning flashes across the sky as they push through heavy turbulence. Minutes later, ATC offers them an unexpected option. Vistara 944, Jaipur is open. Clear skies. Do you want to divert there? It's the best offer they'll get all day. Jaipur is closer, safer, and dry. But the captain shakes his head and responds, negative. Lucknow is our alternate. Those 4 words almost doomed everyone on board. Jaipur wasn't one of Vistara's supported airports. The airline has 2 categories: supported airports, where it has staff and equipment, and acceptable airports, technically capable, but without company support. Jaipur was acceptable, but not supported. Landing there would have been safe for the passengers, but it would have created complications for the airline. So they stick to the plan and fly toward Lucknow, directly into another storm. By the time they reach Lucknow airspace, fuel is down to 1,500 kilos, barely enough for 1 landing attempt. Outside, the sky has turned dark green and gray. Rain lashes the windshield, lightning illuminates the clouds, and visibility drops below the legal minimums. The captain lines up the aircraft for its first approach to Lucknow. The storm is relentless. Rain slamming against the windshield, wind gusts rocking the plane violently from side to side. The autopilot struggles to keep the aircraft steady, so he disengages it and takes manual control. Every decision now will determine life or death. The fuel gauge reads just 1,100 kilos, barely enough for another attempt if the runway isn't visible. Lightning flashes around them, illuminating the dark clouds and the turbulent air. Each second feels like a minute, each minute a lifetime. Visibility reports keep coming in. 600 meters, 500, 475. The runway remains obscured in sheets of driving rain. At 500 feet above the ground, the captain is forced to abort the approach. Another 250 kilos of fuel vanish as the engines roar back to climb out of the storm. They've now missed 2 landing attempts in just a few minutes. The first officer checks the fuel gauge again. 900 kilos remaining. The aircraft is still heavy and wet from the storm. Outside, the world is a blur of darkness and rain. Every mile they fly burns precious fuel, and the nearby airports are either under stormy skies or too far to reach safely. The captain quickly calculates the remaining options. Prayagraj is farther, better equipped, but outside their navigation database and without approach charts. They would have to fly blind into unknown territory through turbulence, rain, and darkness. Still, there's no choice. "Mayday, mayday," the captain calls. "We are minimum fuel. We need an airport to land, sir, immediately." The urgency is clear in his voice. The first officer watches the gauges tick down relentlessly. 800, 700, 600. Time is bleeding, fuel is vanishing, and the storm shows no mercy. Then, a small miracle. A TC reports, "Lucknow visibility now 1,000 meters. Landing is possible." A faint hope, but hope is all they have. They bank sharply toward Lucknow. Every turn must be precise. Every mile counts. Fuel is now 440 kilos, giving them just 8 minutes of flying time. There is no room for error. Air traffic control clears them for landing. "You are number 1. Immediate landing approved." The captain acknowledges, taking a deep breath, steadying himself for the most critical descent of his career. Outside, rain continues to hammer the aircraft, lightning flashing intermittently, illuminating the wet runway lights that are still distant and blurred. The aircraft begins its final descent. At 6,000 feet, turbulence intensifies. The plane is violently tossed, the engine struggling against the wind. At 4,000 feet, fuel is down to 420 kilos. At 3,000 feet, warning lights flash red in the cockpit. Every second of hesitation now burns fuel that they cannot spare. 2,000 feet. The runway should be visible any moment. The captain focuses, hands tight on the controls, eyes scanning the blurred lights through rain-soaked windows. 1,500 feet. The runway remains difficult to see. The autopilot is disengaged. Manual control is the only option now. The first officer calls out altitudes, monitors instruments, and encourages the captain with a calm voice, masking his own fear. 1,000 feet. The storm continues its assault, wind gusts pushing the plane dangerously off course. Then, through the sheets of rain and darkness, a glimmer of light. Runway lights appear faintly, guiding the aircraft. The captain adjusts the descent, keeping the plane aligned despite the crosswinds. 500 feet, 300, 200. Fuel is down to 330 kilos. Every movement is measured, precise, and deliberate. 100 feet. The final gust of wind tries to throw the plane off the runway, but the captain fights it, keeping the nose steady. Touchdown. The wheels meet the wet runway with a splash, skidding slightly before stabilizing. Reverse thrust engages. The aircraft slows, straightening as it continues down the slippery runway. They have made it. The relief is almost tangible in the cockpit, though exhaustion, tension, and disbelief remain. Fuel remaining. 260 kilos, less than 5 minutes of flight time. 161 people are alive because of a few kilos of fuel, a few seconds of luck, and immense skill under pressure. In the days following, both pilots are grounded as investigators piece together the timeline. They are later cleared because what occurred was not pilot error. It was a chain reaction of corporate pressure, regulatory gray zones, optimistic forecasts, and strict procedures. An environment where human decisions were influenced by both training and economics. Passengers on board were largely unaware of the near disaster. For them, it was a bumpy landing and a delay. They could not see the hundreds of kilograms of fuel that had burned in a fight against the storm, or the critical seconds that made the difference between life and death. In the cockpit, the pilots sit silently, hands on instruments, eyes on the fading gauges. Adrenaline slowly ebbs, replaced by exhaustion and reflection. They had followed the procedure, trusted the forecast, and made decisions conditioned by the system they work within. That day, the system had pushed them to the edge, but remarkably, they survived. Flight 944 serves as a case study in aviation safety, human decision-making, and the thin margin that separates catastrophe from survival. It shows how corporate pressures and procedural norms can subtly influence decisions in life or death scenarios. Even small choices, like which alternate airport to consider, can ripple through the flight, creating tension, risk, and near misses. The story is also a reminder of the unpredictability of nature. No forecast is perfect. No plan is infallible. Monsoon storms, turbulence, and wind can turn a normal flight into a test of skill, endurance, and judgment. For the passengers, a routine 2-hour trip was transformed into a story they would never forget. For the pilots, it was a lesson in courage, trust, and responsibility, the kind that cannot be learned in a simulator. If Flight 944 was a miracle, it was one born from a combination of skill, preparation, and fortune. The aircraft, the crew, and the systems all performed under extreme stress. But the day could have ended differently. Every pilot, every passenger, every flight illustrates how fragile the balance can be. And yet there is hope. Aviation systems continuously evolve, learning from near misses like this one. Rules change, forecasting improves, training intensifies, and pilots carry with them the lessons from flights that tested every limit. Flight 944 reminds us of the human factor, the ability to make choices in impossible conditions, the need to respect nature's unpredictability, and the responsibility inherent in every flight. The passengers returned home that night, never fully aware of the storm they had survived. The pilots took time to reflect, knowing that their decisions had saved lives, but also realizing how close they had come to disaster. Every takeoff and landing is a calculated risk, a dance between human judgment, technology, and nature. And on that fateful monsoon day, Vistara Flight 944 demonstrated both the danger and the resilience inherent in modern aviation. If you think Flight 944 was a close call, wait until you hear about Germanwings Flight 9525. That story begins like any other flight, but ends in a way no one could imagine. A stark reminder of how the skies, human choices, and unforeseen circumstances can intersect in ways that challenge everything we assume about safety and control.